Remember back in January, the 27th, when the markets, oh man, they just went haywire.
DeepSeek Day, right?
Yeah, DeepSeek Day. It was like the whole world suddenly woke up to this Chinese AI company called, well, DeepSeek.
It really did come out of nowhere, kind of like a tech earthquake.
Especially for NVIDIA.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, their stock just tanked,
Yeah.
lost, what was it, like $600 billion in one day, just vanished.
Yeah, biggest single day loss for any company ever, right? So in this deep dive, we're gonna get into DeepSeek, figure out how they pulled this off, what their tech actually does, and why you should care.
You know, one of the most fascinating things about DeepSeek is that they've completely flipped the script on this idea that AI development has to be this crazy expensive thing only these giant companies can afford.
Right, like a super exclusive club. So
Yeah.
DeepSeek, right? Founded in 2023, spun out of a hedge fund, led by this guy, Ling Wen.
Who is basically a ghost.
Seriously. Like, good luck finding anything about him. It's kind of creepy, actually, how little we know. Like, I think you've got, like, maybe 2 photos of the guy.
It's the age of, social media and everyone's got to be out there promoting themselves. It makes you wonder, is he like intentionally hiding, trying to create some kind of mystique around DeepSeek?
Well, we do know a few things. He's got a background in finance, and this is interesting. Computer vision.
Ah, now that's important. That's not just some random detail, computer vision, it's all about teaching computers to actually see and understand images, which, let's face it, is a pretty big part of how AI works these days.
So it's like the foundation for everything DeepSeek's built. So they appear in 2023, right? And it's pretty quiet until November. That's when they released this early version of their R1 model.
And this thing, right off the bat, starts performing amazingly well, even going head-to-head with, giants like OpenAI's ChatGPT.
And it wasn't just a one-time thing, like a lucky break. No, R1 consistently ranked high on these independent AI leaderboards. Chatbot Arena, for example, that's run by UC Berkeley. It showed that their AI wasn't all smoke and mirrors,
Yeah.
It could actually deliver.
And then, boom, January 2025, they release R1 as an app, and it just explodes. It even surpassed ChatGPT in downloads. And this R1, it wasn't just another chatbot. It actually explained its thinking process before giving you an answer.
Yeah, that was huge. Most AI, it's in a black box. You give it something, it gives you something back, but you have no idea what happened in there.
It's like magic, right?
Kinda. But DeepSeek's R1, it broke it all down, step by step, like showing your work on a math problem.
So it made the AI seem more, trustworthy, transparent. No wonder people were freaking out about it. This thing could write code, answer tough questions, even write you a breakup text that would make you sob.
But there was a catch.
Right.
R1, it was programmed to avoid certain topics. Things that are politically sensitive, which lines up with Beijing's censorship rules.
Okay, but here's the other side of that. DeepSeek also made R1 open source.
So developers could actually see the code, play around with it, even use it for their own commercial projects on their own servers.
Which brings us to the really crazy part, the cost.
Yeah, the AI world is famous for being incredibly expensive. We're talking billions of dollars to develop and train these models.
Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, you name it, they've all been pouring cash into AI infrastructure. Chips, data centers, the whole shebang. It was this idea that you couldn't even play the AI game without massive, massive investments.
And then DeepSeek drops this bomb. They developed and trained R1 for just, get the $6 million.
$6 million.
People's minds were blown. Suddenly, this whole narrative about AI having to cost a fortune, it was shattered. And it made people question, what were all these other companies doing with all that money? If DeepSeek could get similar results for like a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, and this is where NVIDIA comes in. They're like the king of these powerful chips that everyone uses for AI. And DeepSeek being so efficient, it basically said, hey, maybe you don't need to cram data centers full of these expensive, power-hungry chips.
Which, of course, meant that if demand for NVIDIA's chips dropped, their stock price would follow. And that, my friend, is a big part of why the market went nuts on DeepSeek Day.
But the ripple effects, they went way beyond just chip makers, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about energy companies. Developing AI takes a massive amount of energy. DeepSeek's approach, well, it throws a wrench in that whole system. If you can achieve the same AI power, but use way less energy, it changes the game for energy companies too.
So it's like DeepSeek figured out how to hack the system, almost. Do more with less. Which makes you wonder, how did they actually do it? Well, there's another piece to this whole puzzle, and it involves the US trying to, trying to control what computer chips China could get their hands on.
The Biden administration, they were trying to slow down China's progress in AI by limiting their access to the latest, most powerful chips. You know, it's a pretty standard tactic in these tech rivalries.
But DeepSeek, they had a trick up their sleeve. They didn't need the newest chips. They figured out how to squeeze incredible performance out of older NVIDIA chips.
It's like what game developers have been doing forever.
Right, a new console comes out, developers are stuck with whatever hardware it has, but as time goes on, they learn how to push that hardware further and further to get incredible results.
Exactly. You see it with games that come out towards the end of a console's life. The graphics, they're often way better than games that came out earlier, even though it's the same hardware. Take, for example, Uncharted and The Last of Us. Both PlayStation games, but The Last of Us came out later, and it just looks, I don't know, more real somehow.
More detail.
Yeah, and it's all about optimization, about finding ways to use every last bit of that hardware's potential. And that seems to be what DeepSeek did. They took these older NVIDIA chips, which, who knows, they might have strategically stockpiled, knowing the US might try to restrict them.
Smart.
And they figured out how to make them sing.
It's like Ling Wen saw what was coming and planned for it.
Right.
And this wouldn't be the first time a Chinese company found a way to innovate under US pressure.
Oh, yeah. Remember Huawei? Even with all those sanctions, they managed to develop their own advanced chips. Way better than anyone in the US thought they could. It was a real testament to how resilient and adaptable Chinese companies can be. And DeepSeek, doing this with older chips, it has that same energy. Like, we'll find a way.
So you've got DeepSeek, this company shrouded in secrecy. Their AI is unbelievably efficient, and they dodged US chip restrictions.
No.
No wonder everyone in the tech world is both amazed and, well, kind of freaked out.
I mean, people were scrambling, trying to figure out how they did it. Microsoft, they even launched an investigation. Oh yeah, they wanted to know, were DeepSeek's claims about these ridiculously low development costs, were they even true? And were they using some kind of secret technology that they weren't telling anyone about?
So much mystery.
Right, it's natural, you know, they accomplished something so disruptive. It's hard to believe they did it with what seemed like very limited resources.
But here's the thing, despite all the questions and investigations, DeepSeek, they just kept quiet and kept doing their thing.
And yeah, you have a lot of people raising eyebrows, suspicious of their methods. But then you have others, even some big names in tech, actually praising DeepSeek.
Really?
It's a strange mix. You have the industry digging around, trying to find out their secrets, but then you have people like even former President Trump, American tech leaders, acknowledging that DeepSeek has done something remarkable, welcoming the competition. It's like they recognize that DeepSeek's arrival, it's a wake-up call for the entire AI world.
Like a shot across the bow.
Yeah, exactly. Silicon Valley doesn't have a monopoly on innovation. And DeepSeek, well, they prove that China is a major player in the AI game. They can develop cutting-edge AI that can compete with and even beat what's coming out of the US.
Which brings us to, I think, the most important part of DeepSeek's story. What does it all mean for the future of AI?
They've shaken things up, that's for sure. They've made everyone rethink their assumptions about cost, efficiency, and, frankly, the global balance of power in technology.
And that's where we'll pick things up in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll explore what Deep's approach could mean for the future of AI and, the big question, what happens next? So DeepSeek, they kind of expose this hidden truth about AI development, right?
So like maybe you don't need billions and billions of dollars to make a real impact.
Right. Like all that talk about massive investments. Was it more hype than anything else?
Well, it certainly challenges the way we've been thinking about it. And it raises some really interesting questions, like, are we too focused on just throwing more computing power and data at every problem?
It's like trying to fix everything with a sledgehammer, when sometimes you just need a smaller tool.
Exactly. DeepSeek's success, it suggests that there might be other ways to achieve powerful AI ways that prioritize clever engineering, optimization, instead of just brute force.
And that could change who gets to participate.
Absolutely. If it becomes more about smart design and less about who has the most money, it could really level the playing field, open up the game to more players.
Imagine, small startups, researchers from all over the world competing with the giants, just based on their ideas. That's pretty exciting.
It could really democratize the field, for sure. Allow for more diverse perspectives, different approaches. which ultimately benefits everyone.
But, okay, let's not get carried away. We still don't know everything about DeepSeek, right?
Definitely not. There are still a lot of gaps in our understanding.
Huh.
The specifics of how they achieve this level of efficiency is still a bit of a mystery. And their quiet approach, it's led to a lot of speculation.
They're like the silent disruptors.
Transparency is going to be so important, especially as AI becomes more powerful, more integrated into our lives. We need more information about their methods, their data sources, what's driving their decisions.
And we can't forget the bigger picture here, DeepSeek. They've really intensified this rivalry between the U.S. and China.
Oh yeah. Some people see their success as a sign that China is catching up fast, maybe even surpassing the U.S. when it comes to AI.
So there's this pressure now, right?
Definitely. There are calls for, more investment in AI research and development here in the U.S. A real concern that if we fall behind, we lose our technological edge. And that has huge economic and strategic consequences.
So DeepSeek has basically started an AI arms race.
Yeah.
That's kind of intense.
Well, it's created this sense of urgency, this competition. The question is, will this lead to more collaboration or more fragmentation? Will we see more open source initiatives like DeepSeek R1? Or will companies become even more secretive, more protective?
That's a huge question. And the answer, it's going to shape how AI develops for years to come. But it's not just about governments and corporations, right? This stuff is going to affect all of us personally.
Absolutely. I mean, AI has the potential to transform so many aspects of our lives. Healthcare, education, transportation, entertainment, you name it. As it becomes more powerful, more widespread, we really need to be thinking critically about its role in society.
It's not just some cool tech thing anymore. It's becoming part of the fabric of our lives.
Exactly. And we need to be asking the tough questions. How do we ensure that AI is used ethically, responsibly? How do we prevent bias, discrimination, and how do we prepare for the potential impact on jobs as AI starts to take on more and more tasks?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's moving so fast.
It is, and there are no easy answers.
There.
But we need to start addressing these questions now before AI advances to a point where it's shaping our lives in ways we didn't anticipate or consent to.
It feels so big,
Yeah.
Like, what can we do as individuals?
Well, a good first step is education. Understanding how AI works, its potential, both good and bad. The more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to participate in these conversations, to advocate for responsible development.
So we can't just ignore it, hope it goes away.
Right. We need to be informed, engaged, and, we can support organizations that are working to promote ethical AI practices, advocate for policies that protect our interests in a world where AI is playing such a big role.
So DeepSeek, they've taken us from market crashes to global rivalries to these really deep questions about the future of humanity.
It's a testament to how disruptive this technology is, how much we still have to learn about its long-term impact.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but there's one more twist to DeepSeek's story. Something we need to talk about.
Yeah, a new development. It adds another layer of complexity to this whole narrative.
And it could have some pretty major consequences for the entire AI industry.
So buckle up, because things are about to get even more interesting.
Okay, so we've been digging into DeepSeek, their secretive origins, their amazingly efficient AI, and how they kind of sidestepped those US chip restrictions. But remember all that scrutiny, all those investigations into how they did it. Turns out, DeepSeek might not have been playing by the rules, at least according to some experts.
Yeah, there's this theory going around that DeepSeek might have used a technique called transfer learning, and they might have used it on a massive scale to achieve those crazy cost savings.
Transfer learning. Okay, break that down for me. What is that?
So transfer learning, it's basically taking what an AI model already knows from doing one task and applying it to a new but similar task. It's like, imagine you're learning to play tennis. You've got the basic grip, you know how to swing, then you can use that knowledge to learn a new shot, like a serve or a volley. You're not starting from zero every time.
So you're building on what you already know.
Exactly. And the idea is, instead of training their R1 model from scratch, DeepSeek might have taken an existing AI model, maybe even one developed by, a US company, and just tweaked it for their own purposes.
Whoa, so they might have borrowed someone else's homework and just changed a few answers?
That's the theory, yeah. And if it's true, it's a pretty big deal. It means DeepSeek wasn't just building on existing research. They might have been directly using their competitors' work to jumpstart their own progress.
Okay, that's pretty wild. But wouldn't that be, kind of like stealing?
Well, that's where it gets a bit tricky. The rules around transfer learning and AI, they're still really fuzzy. There's no clear agreement on what's considered fair use versus, infringement.
So it's like a legal gray area. And DeepSeek might have exploited that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Wild West situation right now, and DeepSeek, they might have taken advantage of that.
So on one hand, you've got DeepSeek, these brilliant innovators, figuring out how to make AI incredibly efficient. But on the other hand, they might be bending the rules when it comes to intellectual property. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Exactly. It's entirely possible they made, genuine breakthroughs, but maybe they also took some shortcuts that could get them into trouble.
So what does this mean for the AI world? Moving forward, I mean.
Well, this whole DeepSeek situation, it might force the industry to finally address this ambiguity around transfer learning. We might see new regulations, new guidelines to clarify what's acceptable and what's not.
It makes sense, right? You can't have this much uncertainty in a field that's evolving so rapidly.
Right. And it could also lead to more collaboration, between companies, researchers. If the rules are clear, it might actually encourage more sharing of knowledge resources, which could actually accelerate AI development even further.
So DeepSeek, this company that's been so secretive, might end up pushing the AI world towards more openness, more cooperation. That's kind of ironic.
Yeah, there's definitely some irony there. But it just goes to show innovation, it can be unpredictable. It often comes from unexpected places. And DeepSeek's story, it really highlights that.
All right, so we've really gone deep on DeepSeek, their mysterious rise, their groundbreaking AI, and all the ethical and geopolitical questions they've raised.
It's been a fascinating journey, and it's clear that DeepSeek's impact on the AI world is, well, it's just beginning.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. We're living in a time of incredible technological change. And the pace, it's only going to get faster. DeepSeek's story, it's a wake-up call. We need to stay informed, think critically, and be prepared to adapt to a world where AI plays a bigger and bigger role.
We can't just bury our heads in the sand and hope it goes away.
Exactly. We need to be informed, engaged, and who knows, maybe we can all learn something from DeepSeek about doing more with less, even if they maybe borrowed a few ideas along the way.
Yeah, maybe the next big AI breakthrough, it won't come from some giant corporation, but from someone tinkering in their basement with some old computer parts.
That's the beauty of innovation. It can come from anywhere, so stay curious, stay engaged, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to disrupt the disruptors.
I love that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of DeepSeek. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on this story as it develops, so be sure to subscribe for future updates. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.